Sarah Byers had walked into 1,000 conference rooms in her career. This one shouldn't have felt different. She clutched her leather bag against her side, the morning's chaos still humming through her veins. Mia had cried at drop-off, clinging to Sarah's blazer with paint-stained fingers. The teacher had peeled her away gently, while Sarah whispered promises about bedtime stories and pancakes. Partner track meant sacrifice. It meant missing ballet recitals and parent-teacher conferences. It meant this merger had to go perfectly. The door opened with a soft hiss. Sarah stepped inside, already cataloging faces, reading the room the way she'd been trained. Miller from finance, Chen from operations. The Korean acquisition team clustered near the far wall. Dark suits and measured expressions. Then she saw him. Jin Ho stood at the table's edge, one hand flat against the surface, head bent over a spread of documents. His hair fell forward slightly, the same way it had when he'd studied late into the night in her cramped apartment 7 years ago. He wore his focus like armor, completely absorbed until something made him pause. He looked up. The sound in the room didn't stop. People kept talking, shuffling papers, pouring coffee. But Sarah heard none of it. Her pulse filled her ears like rushing water. His hand froze above the documents. His lips parted slightly. For 3 seconds, maybe 4, neither of them moved. The morning light cut through the windows behind him, turning him into a silhouette she'd tried to forget and failed. A flash of memory hit her, uninvited and sharp. Rain drumming against a taxi window, his thumb tracing her jawline. His voice rough with emotion, promising he'd come back, that he'd find a way. Someone was speaking. A woman's voice, something about quarterly projections and integration timelines. Sarah's lungs remembered how to work. She forced air in, then out. Jin Ho's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping beneath the skin. He looked away first, back down at his papers, but his hand trembled slightly before he pressed it flat. Sarah walked to her assigned seat, each step measured and deliberate. She set her bag down, pulled out her notebook, clicked her pen, all the mechanical motions of professionalism while her mind screamed. If you're still with me, let me know in the comments what you think Sarah should do. Should she tell him about Mia right away, or wait? The meeting began. Sarah took notes she wouldn't remember. Across the table, Jin Ho presented the acquisition timeline with the same controlled precision she'd once found mesmerizing. His English had improved, the slight hesitation that used to appear when he searched for the right word now completely gone. He'd polished himself into someone new, someone untouchable. When he said her name asking for her input on the legal compliance section, she met his eyes and kept her voice steady. Professional, cool. She outlined the regulatory requirements, the timeline for approval, the potential obstacles. She didn't let herself think about how his voice saying her name used to sound different, softer, wrapped in entirely different contexts. The meeting ended after 90 minutes. People gathered their things, broke into smaller conversations. Sarah stood ready to escape. And when Miller called her over to discuss something with the Korean finance lead, she had no choice but to stay. Jin Ho remained at the table, now speaking in rapid Korean with 2 members of his team. Sarah caught fragments. Her Korean was basic, mostly picked up from Mia's children's books, in the cultural identity classes she'd enrolled her daughter in. She heard numbers, something about restructuring. The room emptied slowly. Sarah finished with Miller, turned to leave, and found Jin Ho standing 3 feet away, waiting. "We should talk," he said quietly. "We just did. 2-hour meeting. Very productive." Sarah adjusted her bag strap. "Sarah." The way he said it made her stop. Not the professional tone from the meeting, something rawer, more real. "Not here," she said. "Not now." "Then when?" "I don't know. I need to think." She walked past him close enough to catch the scent of his cologne, different from what he used to wear. Everything about him was different, she told herself. Everything had changed, except when she reached her office and closed the door, her hands were shaking so badly she had to sit down and press them flat against her desk to make them stop. The week that followed was a special kind of torture. Sarah and Jin Ho were assigned as co-leads on the merger integration task force. Every morning meant sitting across from him in meetings. Every afternoon meant conference calls where his voice filled her office through the speakerphone. Every evening meant going home to Mia and pretending everything was fine. Their working relationship developed a careful choreography. They spoke only about business. They maintained appropriate distance. They never referenced the past. To anyone watching, they were simply colleagues navigating a complex corporate transaction. But Sarah saw the cracks. The way Jin Ho's attention would snag on her when he thought she wasn't looking. The careful way he avoided sitting next to her, always leaving at least one empty chair between them. The slight pause before he said her name, as if he had to remind himself which version of her name to use. Not the soft, abbreviated way he'd once said it, just her full name. Professional, distant. The merger itself was becoming a problem. Jin Ho's team wanted aggressive restructuring, layoffs in redundant departments, efficiency metrics that would gut the company culture Sarah's firm had built over decades. She pushed back hard in meetings. Should argued for preserving institutional knowledge, for valuing people over pure profit margins. "You're being sentimental," Jin Ho said during one particularly tense session. Only Sarah and two other senior leads remained in the room. "These cuts are necessary for long-term viability." "I'm being realistic," Sarah countered. "You can't strip a company down to bare margins and expect it to thrive. People aren't line items on a spreadsheet." Something flickered across his face. "I'm aware people aren't line items." The words hung in the air, weighted with subtext. The other two leads looked uncomfortable. Sarah gathered her papers. "Let's table this until tomorrow. I need to review the personnel files again." That evening, as she was packing up to leave, her phone rang. Mia's school. Sarah's heart jumped into her throat. "Hello? Ms. Byers. Wendy, this is Principal Chen. Everything's fine, but Mia's feeling a bit unwell. Stomach ache. The nurse thinks it's best if she goes home early." "I'll be right there." Sarah grabbed her coat and bag, barely remembering to close her laptop. She was halfway to the elevator when she nearly collided with Jin Ho in the hallway. "I'm sorry," she said automatically, stepping aside. But he'd seen her face. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. I have to go." "Sarah." He moved slightly, not blocking her path, but close enough that she'd have to push past him. "You look upset." "I'm fine, just a personal matter." Her phone buzzed, a text from the school nurse with more details. Sarah glanced down, saw Mia's name on the screen. When she looked up, Jin Ho's eyes had dropped to her phone. His expression changed, went very still. "You need to leave," he said. Not a question. "Yes." He stepped aside immediately. "Go." Sarah went, but she felt his eyes on her back all the way to the elevator. The next morning, Jin Ho was waiting outside her office when she arrived. He held 2 cups of coffee, one of which he offered to her. "Is she all right?" he asked. "Your daughter." Sarah took the coffee, surprised. "She's fine. Just a stomach bug. She's home with my neighbor today." Jin Ho nodded, didn't move. Sarah unlocked her office door, hesitated, then stepped inside without inviting him in. He followed anyway. "How old is she?" His voice was careful, controlled. Sarah set down her bag, turned to face him. This was it. The moment she'd been dreading and somehow expecting since that first meeting. 6. She just turned 6 in September. She watched him do the math. Watched his face drain of color. His hand tightened around his coffee cup until she worried it might crack. "I need you to tell me," he said slowly, "if what I'm thinking is true." "What are you thinking?" "Sarah." Her name came out rough. "Please." She met his eyes. 7 years of anger and hurt and loneliness wanted to make this harder for him. Wanted to make him spell it out, suffer through the question, but she was tired. So tired of carrying this alone. "Yes," she said simply. "She's yours." Jin Ho's coffee cup hit the desk hard. Some of it sloshed over the rim. He braced both hands against the surface, head dropping forward. Sarah watched his shoulders rise and fall with measured breaths. 6 years, he finally said. "You've been raising our daughter alone for 6 years." "Yes." "Why didn't you tell me?" The question detonated something in Sarah's chest. "You had to tell you? I tried, Jin Ho. I called. I emailed. You were gone. You left and you didn't look back. I sent you an email. I explained about my father, the company situation. I never got it. And you know what? 1 email. You sent 1 email and then nothing. For 7 years, nothing. Sarah's voice cracked. Do you have any idea what that was like? Finding out I was pregnant and you were just gone? I thought you'd moved on. I thought it would be easier for you if I made a clean break. Easier? Sarah laughed, a harsh sound. You thought abandonment would be easier? I didn't abandon you. I had responsibilities, family obligations, and I didn't? You think I didn't have responsibilities when I was pregnant and alone and terrified? Sarah's hands clenched into fists. You made a choice, Jin Ho. You chose your career, not your family's company, your path forward. And I don't blame you for that. We were young. We barely knew each other. But don't stand here and pretend you were some victim of circumstance. You had options. You picked the one that didn't include me. The words landed like physical blows. Jin Ho straightened slowly, his face carved from stone. You're right, he said quietly. I did make a choice, and I've regretted it every day since. Well, regret doesn't change anything. It doesn't give Mia a father for the first 6 years of her life. It doesn't help me with the sleepless nights or the daycare bills or the constant fear that I'm doing everything wrong. I know, and I can't fix any of that. Jin Ho's voice dropped lower. But I'm here now, and I want to be part of her life. If you'll let me. Sarah's throat tightened. This was the part she'd feared most. It's not that simple. I'm not asking for simple. I'm asking for a chance. You don't understand. Mia doesn't know you. She doesn't know about you. She thinks her father wasn't interested in being part of her life. I told her the truth in the gentlest way I could. But that's the story she knows. Jin Ho flinched. What if we change that story? This isn't a business negotiation. You can't just restructure a child's life. I'm not trying to restructure anything. I'm trying to be responsible for my daughter. He paused. Please, Sarah, let me meet her. Let me try. Sarah wanted to say no. Every protective instinct screamed at her to keep Mia safe from potential disappointment, from the complication of a father who might leave again. But she looked at Jin Ho's face and saw genuine anguish there. Eve saw the same guilt that had haunted her own reflection for years, the constant question of whether she'd made the right choices. Slowly, she finally said, on my terms. And if at any point I think this is hurting her, we stop. Understood? Understood. I mean it, Jin Ho. She comes first. Not us, not the past, not your guilt or my anger. Just her. I wouldn't want it any other way. Sarah nodded slowly. Okay, I'll think about how to do this. Give me a few days. Jin Ho looked like he wanted to argue, to push for immediate action. Instead, he took a breath and nodded. Thank you. After he left, Sarah sat at her desk for a long time, staring at nothing. Her coffee had gone cold. Outside, the city continued its morning rush, oblivious to the way her world had just tilted on its axis. How did the merger talks deteriorated over the next 2 weeks? The Korean board wanted faster timelines, deeper cuts. Sarah's partners pushed back, threatened to walk away from the deal entirely. Jin Ho was caught in the middle, pressure from Seoul mounting daily. Sarah barely noticed. She was too busy navigating the impossible conversation with Mia. She started carefully during dinner one evening. Sweetheart, you know how sometimes families look different? How Emma has 2 mommies and Jackson lives with his grandparents? Mia nodded, pushing rice around her plate. Everyone's family is special. That's right. And I wanted to talk to you about our family, about your dad. Mia's fork stopped moving. She looked up with those dark eyes, so much like Jin Ho's it sometimes hurt. My dad who didn't want to be a dad? Sarah's heart cracked. Or it's more complicated than that, baby. Your dad didn't know about you. I tried to tell him, but we lost touch before I could. Oh, Mia processed this. So he wasn't mean? He just didn't know? He didn't know, but now he does. And he'd like to meet you, if that's okay with you. Mia was quiet for a long time. Is he nice? I think so. He's actually someone I work with right now. That's how we found each other again. What's his name? Jin Ho. Mia tested it out quietly. Jin Ho. Then with devastating directness, do you think he'll like me? Sarah came around the table and pulled her daughter into a fierce hug. Baby, he's going to love you. How could he not? You're the best person I know. They met at a neutral location. A park, Sarah decided. Open space, easy escape routes if needed. Nothing too formal or forced. Jin Ho arrived exactly on time, carrying a bag that clinked suspiciously like it contained art supplies. Mia held Sarah's hand tight, half hiding behind her mother's legs as Jin Ho approached. He dressed down for the occasion, jeans and a simple sweater, though he still somehow looked put together in a way that made Sarah feel underdressed. He stopped a few feet away and crouched down to Mia's eye level. "Hi, Mia. I'm Jin Ho. It's really nice to meet you." Mia studied him seriously. "You look like the pictures Mommy has." Sarah blinked. She'd thought she'd hidden those better. Jin Ho's lips curved in a small smile. "I hope that's a good thing." "You have the same eyes as me," Mia observed. "I do. We have a lot of things that are the same." He held up the bag carefully. "Your mom mentioned you like to draw. I thought maybe we could do that together. I'm not very good, but I'd like to learn." Mia's grip on Sarah's hand loosened slightly. "What kind of supplies did you bring?" "Everything the art store lady recommended, which turned out to be a lot." That got a small giggle. Mia stepped forward, peering into the bag. Her eyes widened. "Watercolors? And markers? And colored pencils? And some kind of special paper?" Jin Ho looked up at Sarah helplessly. "I might have overdone it." "Maybe a little," Sarah said, but her voice was soft. They spent the afternoon at a picnic table. Mia took charge immediately, organizing supplies with serious efficiency. She explained to Jin Ho the difference between various types of paper, the proper way to blend colors, and why markers always needed their caps put back on immediately. Jin Ho listened with complete focus, asked questions, and followed her instructions exactly. When Mia demonstrated a technique, he watched carefully and tried to replicate it. His attempts were terrible, objectively speaking, but Mia found this delightful. "You're really bad at this," she announced cheerfully. "I really am," Jin Ho agreed. "That's okay. Mommy says practice makes progress, not perfect." Jin Ho glanced at Sarah. Something warm passed between them, just for a moment. "Your mommy sounds smart." "She is. She knows everything." "Not everything," Sarah murmured, but she was smiling. When Mia's attention returned to her painting, Jin Ho shifted closer to Sarah. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for this." "Don't thank me yet. This is just the beginning." "I know, but still," he paused. "She's incredible, Sarah. You've done an amazing job." "We're not done yet. She's only 6. Plenty of time for me to screw it up." "You won't. You don't know that." Jin Ho looked at their daughter, completely absorbed in adding details to her painting. "Yes," he said softly, "I do." The merger reached a crisis point 3 days later. The Korean board issued an ultimatum: accept their restructuring plan by Friday, or they'd walk away from the acquisition entirely. Sarah's firm would lose the capital injection they desperately needed. Her path to partner would evaporate. The emergency meeting was brutal. Voices raised, accusations flew. Sarah found herself arguing against Jin Ho again, but this time it felt different. She wasn't just fighting for her career, she was fighting for the people she'd worked alongside for years. People with families, mortgages, yet lives built around this company. "These aren't acceptable terms," she said flatly, when Jin Ho's senior partner finished presenting the final offer. "You're asking us to sacrifice our foundation for short-term profit margins." "We're asking you to be realistic about market conditions," the partner replied. "I am being realistic. You're being short-sighted." Sarah pulled up her counter-proposal, months of work distilled into a new framework. "Here's what I suggest. We restructure, but strategically. We identify redundancies through collaborative review, not unilateral mandates. We preserve key personnel and institutional knowledge. We create integration teams that include voices from both companies. It'll take longer, cost more upfront, but the long-term stability will be worth it." The room was silent. Sarah felt Jin Ho's eyes on her. "Imu, this is a significant departure from our standard acquisition model," his partner said slowly. "Your standard model doesn't account for human capital as an asset. Mine does." Jin Ho leaned forward. He spoke in Korean to his partner, rapid and firm. Sarah caught words here and there. Trust, long-term, risk. His partner responded, equally firm. Numbers, timeline, board expectations. Jin Ho said something else, quieter but with an edge of steel. Then he switched back to English. We'll take this back to Seoul. Present both options to the board. Give us 48 hours. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. The meeting adjourned. Sarah was gathering her materials when Jin Ho touched her elbow lightly. Can we talk? Privately. They found an empty office. Jin Ho closed the door and turned to face her. I backed your proposal, he said. I noticed, thank you. I didn't do it as a favor. I did it because it's right. He ran a hand through his hair, disrupting its careful styling. I've been doing this job for 7 years. I've restructured 17 companies. I've made all the hard calls, all the efficient decisions. And I've convinced myself it was necessary. That sentiment was a luxury we couldn't afford. Jin Ho, let me finish, please. He took a breath. You were right. What you said about me choosing my career, my path forward. I did. I chose ambition over everything else because I thought that's what made me valuable, what made me worthy. He laughed bitterly. And I became very good at it, very successful. I built exactly the life I thought I wanted. What changed? Mia. Jin Ho's voice cracked slightly. Seeing her, and knowing I missed 6 years because I was too much of a coward to fight for what mattered. I can't get that time back. I can't undo the choice I made 7 years ago. But I can make a different choice now. Sarah's throat tightened. What are you saying? Seoul offered me a promotion, executive vice president, oversee all North American acquisitions. It's everything I've worked toward. He met her eyes. I'm going to turn it down. Jin Ho, you don't have to. I want to stay here, not for the job, for Mia, for the chance to be her father if she'll have me. He paused. And for you, if there's any possibility that you might want that too. Sarah felt tears building behind her eyes. I don't know if I can trust you again. I don't know if I should. I know, and I'm not asking for promises or guarantees. And I'm just asking for a chance to prove I've learned, that I can choose differently this time. This isn't a business negotiation. No, it's much more important than that. Jin Ho stepped closer, carefully, giving her room to move away if she wanted. Sarah, I've spent 7 years pretending I didn't make the biggest mistake of my life, pretending that success could fill the space where you used to be. It can't. It never could. Sarah's defenses crumbled. I'm still angry at you. You should be. And I'm scared of getting hurt again, of Mia getting hurt. I'm scared too. I'm terrified I'll mess this up. His hand lifted, hovering near her face, not quite touching. But I'd rather try and fail than not try at all. Sarah closed the distance between them, let her forehead rest against his shoulder. Jin Ho's arms came around her carefully, like he was holding something precious and breakable. One day at a time, she whispered. That's all I can promise. That's enough. That's more than enough. The Seoul board approved Sarah's restructuring proposal. The merger proceeded on new terms, with integration teams and collaborative review processes. It took longer, cost more, but 6 months later, the combined company reported stronger retention and higher employee satisfaction than any previous acquisition. Sarah made partner. Jin Ho took a position in the U.S. division, leading the newly formed integration team. They bought a house together, carefully, after months of family counseling and honest conversations about expectations and fear and hope. Mia thrived. She taught Jin Ho to paint, to braid hair, Mike to appreciate animated movies he'd never seen. He taught her Korean phrases, took her to art museums, and showed up to every school event with the dedication of someone making up for lost time. On a Saturday morning, almost a year after that first meeting, Sarah found Jin Ho and Mia at the kitchen table. They were working on a drawing together. Mia was directing as usual, while Jin Ho followed her instructions with exaggerated seriousness. The tree needs to be bigger, Mia insisted. How much bigger? This big. She stretched her arms wide. That's a very big tree. It's a family tree, Daddy. It has to fit everyone. Jin Ho's hand stilled on the crayon. He looked at Mia, then up at Sarah in the doorway. His eyes were bright. You're right, he said softly. It has to fit everyone. Mia added another branch with careful precision. When in the middle of the tree, she'd drawn 3 figures holding hands. Under each one, in her careful 6-year-old handwriting, she'd written their names. Sarah sat down at the table. Jin Ho's hand found hers under the table, squeezed gently. Mia continued drawing, narrating her additions with cheerful authority. Outside, the morning sun climbed higher. Inside, three people who'd found their way back to each other sat together, building something new from broken pieces. It wasn't the ending Sarah had imagined 7 years ago, but it was theirs. If this story touched you, hit that subscribe button for more stories about second chances, resilience, and the courage it takes to rebuild what's broken. Thank you for listening.